Knowing the future and keeping the past alive are one and the same thing.
You could say I've made another snake. I'm not talking about the children. His phantom.
What happens from here depends on his skill. You can vouch for that.
He was always the best man we had.
He died protecting you. And now by becoming you, he protects you again. You might even call it a war economy. Before long, Cypher, or rather the Patriots, will be drawn to this.
Big Boss can go to hell. I'll make the Phantom and his son stronger to send him there. For that, I'll keep playing my role.
I haven't forgotten what you told me, boss. We have no tomorrow. But there's still hope for the future. In our struggle to survive the present, we push the future farther away. Will I see it in my lifetime? Probably not. Which means there's no time to waste. Someday the world will no longer need us. No need for the gun, or the hand to pull the trigger. I have to drive out this demon inside me. Build a better future. That's what we will leave as our legacy. Another mission, right, boss? From here on out, you're Big Boss.
After the events of Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, we come to understand what made Venom Snake, the greatest soldier, suitable to carry on a misinterpretation of Big Boss's will that stemmed from the Boss's will. This sets the stage for a conflict of ideologies between Big Boss, whose training and love from the Boss resembled that of a mother, and Zero, a man with SAS expertise and serving alongside the Boss and extensive battlefield experience. Between them lies the charismatic enigma of the Boss herself.
What's the story between you and the Boss?
She was like a mother, and my master.
And your lover?
It went deeper than that.
Deeper?
Half of me belongs to the Boss.
The winged dagger of a comrade lost to the sands of Egypt. He served under the Boss back in Rayforce. I delivered this pin to her after his death. We were both so very young. From that moment on, she never let it leave her side.
She was still carrying it in Selino-Yask. How about the back?
Amidst these conflicting ideologies, themes of deceit, power, and the passage of time emerge. Shadows linger closely to their vessels, unseen but deeply felt like the phantoms, challenging the established order, particularly the Patriots' rule of law. Metal Gear Solid 5 weaves its events in the classic narratives from the MSX games, imbuing them with ambiguity and inviting viewers to unravel the chronology and canonicity of the series. So now let's piece together what truly unfolded in Outer Heaven, a narrative rich with complexity, deception, and profound themes that resonate deeply with players. Join us on this poetic exploration, because we are about to uncover the hidden truths of the Metal Gear saga and delve into the essence of Outer Heaven.
We have no nation, no philosophy, no ideology. We go where we're needed, fighting not for country, not for government, but for ourselves. We need no reason to fight. We fight because we are needed. We will be the deterrent for those with no other recourse. We are soldiers without borders, our purpose defined by the era we live in. We will sometimes have to sell ourselves and services. If the times demand it, we'll be revolutionaries, criminals, terrorists, and yes, we may all be headed straight to hell. But what better place for us than this? It is our only home, our heaven and our hell. This is outer heaven.
In the phantom pain before the lead up to Outer Heaven, Venom Snake undergoes a profound journey of self-discovery as his fragmented mind begins to reconcile with his true identity. Gazing into the mirror, he questions the reflection staring back at him, grappling with the weight of his visage and the role he is destined to fulfill. The pivotal moment arrives when Venom listens to the truth tape titled The Man Who Sold the World, where Big Boss reveals the ultimate purpose for Venom's existence, to build Outer Heaven and assume the mantle of Big Boss, a title reserved for one of the greatest soldiers in history. As the truth unfolds, Venom smirks, reflects a mix of determination and acceptance, affirming his readiness to embrace this prestigious legacy.
Where we are today, we built it. This story, this legend, it's ours. We can change the world and with it the future. I am you and you are me. Carry that with you wherever you go. Thank you, my friend. From here on out, you're Big Boss.
The exact timeline of when Venom acquires these tapes remains shrouded in mystery, likely occurring in the later years of 1984 or perhaps even beyond. Venom flips the tape which reveals Operation Intrude, a plan devised by the major powers to uncover the military nation with Solid Snake at its helm. The time passage in the Phantom Pain is not really confirmed. It appears that Venom Snake learns of his identity at the same time as learning of the impending attack, which doesn't seem right as it would be such short notice, learning of these revelations without some preparations. But with that being said, the cutscenes do hint at a passage of time with the Outer Heaven logo within the smoke and mirrors, which is symbolic by nature. It would seem more likely that the case was that Big Boss told Venom his identity somewhere in the 80s for the tape of Operation Intrude to be somewhere in the early 90s to 1995. Venom Snake punching the mirror is interpreted in many ways, but one could say he kills his inner reflection and assumes the role of Big Boss. No matter what he sees, when he looks into the reflection, he is now part of a larger legacy. Presentation in the last scene should have been expanded upon. We didn't see no time of passage of Venom aging whatsoever, apart from the Outer Heaven logo on the door, and with Venom Snake making his way to face Solid Snake. In Outer Heaven, men do become demons, and just like the superpowers that they are up against, that in fact they commit all kinds of atrocities, Venom punching the mirror is also distinguishing the demon from within. Ones that come with war, such as the repetitive nature of death and the cycle of profits, a war without end.
I'll handle the rest. Here. That's your name as of today. Best change your face, too. For this one, he'll take your place. From here on, he's Snake. He believes it, too.
My very own Phantom, huh?
Boss, the whole world wants your head.
So some are led to believe that Big Boss goes off to build Outer Heaven in South Africa, then he leaves Venom in charge around the time he goes back to America and takes command of Foxhound. After the fall of Outer Heaven, he builds a new nation known as Zanzibar. But given on the time frame from 95 to 1990, it just wouldn't make sense, as establishing a nation would take far more many years. It's more likely that in the future, Diamond Dogs would be converted into Outer Heaven and re-established elsewhere other than its offshore base. Whilst this hasn't been explicitly stated, we have to bear in mind that this is a high possibility.
The Seychelles has strong ties to the east, which the West wanted to shake up. It came to a head 3 years ago in an attempted coup.
It was a force of South African mercenaries, with US backing behind the scenes. They were only platoon size, but South Africa is home to some heavy PFs. Too much for the Seychelles to handle. In the end, they accepted help from the Tanzanian army and quelled the coup. We set up the deal and handled on-site tactical instruction. That led to some training work for the Seychelles military. And when we put down a mutiny within their forces, well, we made a lot of people happy. They don't pay us. They just let us have a piece of their offshore territory on the promise we'll come running if something else happens.
So we're bodyguards, too.
It's a good setup. We can only take Mother Base so far here. We'll have to find somewhere else when this place starts getting big.
As stated into the main canon story, Big Boss would return to the US, while Venom Snake took his place in Outer Heaven in 1995, where Outer Heaven's activities were ultimately discovered by the West. There is no certainty that Diamond Dogs was converted into Outer Heaven. To the story, it makes sense to many others. I mean, Big Boss could have been establishing two nations at once. Well, because after all, the nations are built within Africa. The reach isn't too far and beyond. To be more specific, Galsburg was a region in the Republic of South Africa in which Outer Heaven was established. It could make sense that it was Diamond Dogs that was converted to Outer Heaven, given on the fact that the Seychelles is not too far from South Africa. I'm not determining what's right and what's wrong. You can either follow the main canon story or believe in your own.
The real Big Boss is working separately from us to create his new nation.
New nation?
A military nation above and apart from all. The true Outer Heaven. Something created to maintain world balance, independent of the struggles for supremacy, for personal profit, the cycles of revenge between countries. It'll be an army, all right, but more. Big Boss is building a nation. But until it's complete, we support the other Big Boss. The Phantom carries on his legend, his meme. That is Big Boss's plan.
Some years prior in Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, around 1971, Big Boss would form Foxhound, a high-tech special forces unit and formidable elite Black Ops unit of the United States Army. Foxhound specialised in covert solo infiltration to cope with local revolutions, regional complications and global terrorist activities in unauthorised combat zones. Too politically sensitive to intervene through conventional means, Big Boss originally commanded the group, though he soon left Foxhound and America to form the Military Sans Frontières in 1972, resenting playing the pawn and being the icon for Zero and for the creation of his clone sons, wishing to break free from nation states and fight for independence for what he believed were the boss's true will, giving a place where soldiers are needed, and to challenge and shape the balance of the global power by defying the major superpowers across the world, especially that of America. In essence, Big Boss resented playing the pawn and no doubt didn't want to take the same fate that the boss herself had faced. And essentially, Portable Ops would serve the starting point for Big Boss taking inspiration from the likes of Gene to form Outer Heaven. Many have argued within the community of Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops Canon City, but one can't deny there is so many pivotal points within this game that are very important to the overall story. And in this context would be the formation of Foxhound. Of course, that would be developed for the United States and Zero himself. Of course, Big Boss could later resume to take his place within Foxhound. After all, he is the legendary hero that saved the world from all-out nuclear disaster from the events of Operation Snake Eater, and a few more missions after the fact that would protect the integrity of the United States, in the eyes of which they look at Big Boss as being somewhat of a hero, a patriot, someone who saved the world from all-out impending doom. It would make sense why Big Boss would be so favourable to return to the United States and be welcomed with open arms to be the commander of the Foxhound unit. The Foxhound unit would serve as the perfect distraction for Big Boss whilst his other nations were in development. The very nation of which America was under control of by the time would be the Patriots AI that was under development, one that Zero had seized control of in all different congresses and military intelligence agencies and even the government itself.
After Big Boss left, Zero really lost control. What Zero wanted was an orderly world, one governed by rules. His fortune grew through countless wars, and his words influenced decision-making all the way up to the Oval Office. As the world saw the rise of digital technology, IT, the internet, and genetics, the Patriots' power grew immense. Their roots spread and took hold throughout the globe. In time, they began to dictate the fate of entire nations from the shadows. And before we knew it, the Patriots, the proud police of the world, started bringing an entire planet under their control.
But with all of that being said, Portable Ops serves the perfect foundation for the very importance of Foxhound and its overall appearance within the MSX games.
So I hear they did a cover-up job on Fox's rebellion.
Yeah. They're saying I was sent out to take down a Soviet missile base. That's it.
Can't say I blame them. After all, how do you share the news that the U.S. homeland was facing nuclear attack? Don't beat yourself up over this, Snake. You did your country a great service. You deserve that medal. No one knows that better than you and I.
Yeah.
So what'll you do now, Snake?
I don't know. But I've realized something.
What's that?
I'm not living unless I'm in battle, so I have to find my own reason to fight. I have to pass on what's been handed down to me.
Take care, Snake. We'll meet again someday.
In the Metal Gear Solid lore, there have been noticeable retcons, revisions, and contradictions that have reshaped the series. The narrative landscape as such, for an instance which can be found in Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, which introduces Grey Fox, as known as Frank Jaeger, with a backstory that challenges established timelines and character origins. According to the Metal Gear Solid Handbook, Frank Jaeger was purportedly born in the 1970s, which placed him as a mere toddler during the events of Portable Ops. This discrepancy creates a significant gap in the narrative and deviates from Kojima's original plan, as he served as the producer for the game of Portable Ops but did not oversee all aspects of its story development, and one can question why he even allowed it to happen at all if it completely deviates from the plot. Many fans and critics argue that Portable Ops effectively retcon Grey Fox's story, portraying him as an older teenager or a young adult, which conflicts with his established backstory in Metal Gear 2, where he recalls meeting Big Boss in Vietnam after the war, presumably the war that took place with the Americans, but it could have been an event that occurred during the First Indochina War from 1946 to 1954, which could tie in with the storyline of Portable Ops, and clarifying Jaeger's birthday as the 1950s as indicated by the Metal Gear official wiki, aligns more coherently with the established historical events and character timelines. The shift underscores the complex nature of continuity within the Metal Gear series, and the challenges of reconciling retcons with the broader narrative. In the realm of Metal Gear Solid 5, which offers its own retcon in the series, the assertion that Big Boss saved Grey Fox during a 9-year coma in 1975 poses an additional narrative, challenges viewers to discern from the correct narratives, since Big Boss was officially considered to be in a coma during this time. And for those who didn't like the changes after the fact, would argue that Metal Gear Solid 5, Big Boss would wake up from a coma a lot earlier than the likes of Venom Snake, hence making these events possible. But given on Metal Gear Solid 5's ending, it kinda proved that that wasn't necessarily the case. Either way, it's left open for the player's interpretation for what they believe is best suited to their taste of the story, and to be honest with you, who really gives a fuck? Grey Fox regardless was an essential piece of the story that ties in with being in Hell to Heaven and the overall storyline that makes his character arc fantastically well done, even with the inconsistencies and the different retcons which Metal Gear Solid is known for, doesn't necessarily impact the game in a negative way. But like I said, it's left open for the viewer's discretion to decide what narratives they prefer. But with most of that being said, it appears that Hideo Kojima most likely took Portable Ops as being part of the canon story. He considered it somewhat of a spin-off and didn't outright dismiss it. Whilst it may not be a Hideo Kojima game, doesn't necessarily mean that it cannot be part of the story.
That is a very difficult question. For Portable Ops, I was a producer, so of course I saw the plannings, I went through all the game, but I didn't write the story myself, so some of the details are a bit off. So how to put it, when you dive into the details, there are several small things that don't seem to be, according to the overall Metal Gear saga, that seem to be outside of this world. So, to put it in a way, I guess the main storyline of Portal Warps is part of the saga, is part of the official Metal Gear timeline, whereas some of the small details that are in Portal Warps are outside the saga, are not a part of, let's say, the main timeline of the game. May have a different rule. I do have in my mind separated these two.
All right, we only have time for a...
Remember? Your partner 9 years ago, Kazuhira Miller. 9 years back, your private army came under attack by Cypher. You were considered dead. Until today, that is, when Cypher found you. And it's not just them. The whole world wants you dead. You'll have to join up with Miller. Build that private army of yours one more time. It's your only chance.
After the Cold War, the world's most powerful nations, both capitalist and communist, faced a new existential threat. Ocelot's ominous statement, "The whole world wants you dead," carries profound weight in the context of Big Boss's ambitions, visions to reshape the global order with his ideologies. Ocelot's words serve to reinforce the narrative for Venom Snake, who is betraying Big Boss, as bearing the burden of this endless battle, a war of wills and beliefs that transcends nations and superpowers. The narrative challenges the established norms of the Cold War era, heralding a shift in geopolitical landscape and the very fabric of the global power dynamics. Outer Heaven challenges these norms. It's neither capitalism or communism. In fact, it's against the both of the opposites. It has no friends. It is a standalone organisation. It's free from rules and policies. It is, in essence, its own nation. It's one that refuses to be binded and caught up in proxy wars or under control of governments and nations and colonialism. It's free from control and governments. In essence, it's what Big Boss pictures and visions. He doesn't want to see the recreation of the boss unfold again. That the boss's noble death is a reminder of those with false pretenses, one that naturally attracted a lot of soldiers and mercenaries over the world, given on their treatments by their very own governments. It became an attraction. That soldiers were needed. What Big Boss and Kaz created was these private forces that expanded all over the world, that in fact even superpowers themselves would even hire organisations, such as Big Bosses, to carry out their own dirty work without getting their hands involved. It became a business, beneficial all round. To put it in better words, it was war as a business. It was a shift in the times. Even organisations such as the CIA would use Diamond Dogs as a business, as well as Cypher eventually adopting the overall war economy that came with these private forces that both Big Boss and Kaz had inspired. It seems that even though the whole world wanted Big Boss dead, at the same time the world still needed him.
We had contracts all over, east and west, from superpowers to banana republics, the lot. Our clients denied all association with the likes of us. They had to make sure things didn't blow up on them. But at the same time, they missed us. They really missed us. The demand for armies for hire was as strong as ever. The international community turned a blind eye to what happened to us, despite still needing people who could do our jobs. History couldn't afford to lose us. As soon as we were gone, they needed a replacement. So private forces spread everywhere. And they're all just a phone call away.
But still.
I know. PFs are totally different from what we envisioned. Nation-states, revolutionaries, terrorists, they have a lot of clients, and Cypher is one of them. Cypher stays anonymous, but I know their work when I see it. In the eyes of those clients, the world's PFs are all just expendable pawns. The clients don't have to worry about losing their own men. Nobody knows they're involved, and PFs are cheap. In short, the world is chewing up soldiers and spitting them out. Even some of the old Mother Base's survivors are still working for PFs. Some guys created their own smaller forces. Others were taken on by emerging PFs. Everybody's gone their separate ways. But none of them are living their dream, because they're not fighting with you. Of course, I tried to headhunt as many of them as I could for Diamond Dogs. It was all a waste of time. They said they weren't interested without you to lead them. But now you're back. And everything's gonna change. We'll unite all private forces under you, transcending nations and economies. What is a nation? Just a patch of dirt. The bonds among us will surpass nations, and that's what'll put the world under our control. We'll establish a new kind of country, redefine the very concept of it. Even Cypher will be below us. An extraterritorial federation of military nations. The United States of Force.
You, your men, had worn out your welcome. Everyone was out for you. East, West, First World, Third. It was only a matter of time before someone took you down. And that was XOF. Officially, they're an anti-terror unit under the CIA. In reality, they're Cypher's private strike force. But you survived. You went straight down to hell, and they pulled you out. Your eye wide open. Full of venom. The days of naked Snake are long gone. Welcome back, Venom Snake. This world still needs you.
Ultimately, the conflict between Big Boss and Zero transcends simple notions of hate and resentment. It represents a battle of wills, driven by complex motivations and conflicting ideologies. Zero's insatiable hunger for world power and control knew no bounds, leading him down a path driven by an obsessive vision that sought to dominate the world under his command. Big Boss, on the other hand, came to reject Zero's vision, recognising the dangers of information control and government manipulation that Zero epitomised. This rejection marked the beginning of their rift, as Big Boss sought to dismantle Zero's influence and create a world free from the shackles of centralised power. Whilst at some point later in the Metal Gear series, Cypher, or rather Zero, has an immense control over the United States government, hence acting through a shadow organisation that would eventually take control of the world through artificial intelligence.
Zero created the Patriots to manage and control the American state. That control endured long after the Cold War ended. The organization became an empty shell, continuing to function through AIs. Those AIs are responsible for the creation of the war economy, and they gave rise to the Sons of the Patriot system. But I am partly to blame.
There would still be people in positions of power in the US that recognised Big Boss for all the great things he had done, such as preventing all-out nuclear war more than one time, saving the United States. Hence, Big Boss's return to the United States to reform the likes of Foxhound would be welcomed with open arms. At least before the events of Outer Heaven, Big Boss would no doubt be welcomed as a hero to resume his command, fighting for the US once again.
You know, we could use an infiltration unit like Fox in the army. Someone like him to handle our top secret sneaking missions for us. A man who combines the qualities of a soldier and an agent.
That thing?
Get NORAD on the phone.
Incoming MIRV warheads have separated.
Estimated time to impact now, 11 minutes.
Sir, we've got a call.
The president?
No, sir.
Then who?
He,
Spit it out!
He claims to be Big Boss. Big Boss? Patch him through.
Mr. Chairman, I'll get straight to the point. Cancel the retaliatory strike now!
What?
The radar blips you're seeing are all fakes. No one's launched any nukes.
How do you know?
The launch data is fake, part of an experiment that leaked. You weren't supposed to receive it. Your radar is showing missiles that don't exist.
If you're lying, then we've got 10 minutes till we're toast. We have to retaliate or more Americans die.
The experiment was planned and executed by the CIA station chief in Central America.
Then put him on!
He's dead. I can give you his name, though.
We need more than the authentication code you gave the switchboard. We need proof you're actually Big Boss. Do you have any?
All right. If you know the name Big Boss, then maybe you were there at the ceremony when I received the title from President Johnson.
Indeed I was.
We don't have time for this bullshit!
Hold it! Let's hear him out. You were saying?
At the ceremony, the DCI tried to shake my hand. I refused. What happened in that room is classified, top secret. Only a handful of people would know.
He's making it up! Don't listen to him!
Wait! What? The Big Boss? He claims to be Big Boss. 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 He claims Why did you refuse to shake his hand?
Because I knew where my loyalty belonged.
Everybody, listen to me. Those Soviet missiles are fakes.
The level of admiration that the United States have for Big Boss is quite evident. Throughout the game of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Big Boss practically saves the entire United States and prevents, again, an all-out nuclear war. Although with that being said, with Zero's desperate bid to retain Big Boss as a part of Cypher would go to desperate lengths to blackmail Big Boss by framing him for launching a nuclear attack in the United States. Of course, all of this would only increase the separation between Big Boss and Zero, with Big Boss believing that Zero perhaps hated him or maybe even feared him, and hence his power of influence would overshadow the likes of Zero.
Now the ultimatum. Zeke is already in nuclear strike mode.
What?
I'm taking the weapon you built and using it to launch a nuclear strike on the east coast of the United States.
You're insane. What are you after?
But wait, here is your consolation prize.
Even with so much bad blood between us, it's funny. Now that I'm actually face to face with him again, the hatred is gone. All I feel is a deep sense of longing and pity. Did Zero really hate me? Or did he fear me?
Ultimately, the war between Zero and Big Boss was a shadowy war, one that really other nations across the world wasn't massively aware of at the time. Zero wanted to try and remove the likes of MSF and frame Big Boss to get him under his control any way he possibly could. But in reality, Zero had some very unusual love that was warped in the case of Big Boss. To Zero, Big Boss was an irreplaceable icon. He was still part of the Patriots, whether he chose to be or not. Because Zero was definitely more than aware that Big Boss was a nuclear-equipped nation. And instead of exposing this to the world's superpowers, he kept it a secret. Because with the development of nuclear weapons comes international monitoring. The development of nuclear weapons by a country often triggers heightened scrutiny from international organisations. Big Boss no doubt would have been expecting a knock on the door from the IAEA a lot sooner. As well as the United Nations Security Council, which would also get involved. Ultimately, Big Boss would have a big bullseye slapped on his back. And with that, Zero and an efforts did him somewhat of a favour, showing that really in war is there really a timeless enemy, as the boss explains.
Enemies change along with the times, the flow of the ages, and we soldiers are forced to play along. I didn't raise you and shape you into the man you are today, just so we could face each other in battle. A soldier's skills aren't meant to be used to hurt friends. So then what is an enemy? Is there such a thing as an absolute timeless enemy? There is no such thing, and never has been. And the reason is that our enemies are human beings like us. They can only be our enemies in relative terms. The world must be made whole again.
Because Zero did look at Big Boss as a friend, he saw that the boss's will couldn't be continued really without his support alongside his involvement with the Cypher and the Patriots. But we can already see that during the events of Peace Walker and Ground Zeroes exactly how much of a dangerous force Big Boss is. He wields a nuclear weapon in secrecy, one buried underneath the ocean floor along with Metal Gear Zeke. The false inspection sent by Cypher is no more or less probably Zero's doing, and in for the fact that he knew that Big Boss would be a threat to his organisation. By wiping out MSF and lowering Big Boss out was a great way to protect the integrity of the Patriots' control. That is, of course, if you believe that Zero wasn't behind it and that was XOF. But nonetheless, if the nations across the world knew Big Boss was a nuclear nation that was keeping it within secrecy, he would no doubt be in massive trouble, and would definitely be branded a war criminal nationwide. Hence his cover was still not blown at this point for him to return back to America, resuming Foxhound. Even after the disastrous fall of MSF, even the Zero himself would cover up such events from prying eyes. You could say that Zero didn't want to outright destroy Big Boss, but more or less keep him in check.
How did we end up agreeing to the nuclear inspection?
Because after you sent that letter, I told them.
After careful reconsideration, we agree to your request. And frankly, we should be inspected. This is our chance. If they come and go without discovering the nuke, we can tell the world we're clean. Of course, it's risky, and we'll have to make sure everything's perfect, but it'll be worth it.
Huey, can they do an inspection without going through the Board of Governors?
We contacted the IAEA's admin branch, and they said there's no record of us being brought up at any of the board's meetings.
I'd say probably a preliminary inspection to determine whether we should be referred to the board. So it's bound to be a small inspection team, and they won't be here that long. Don't worry, leave everything to me.
Has the media gotten wind of this?
Yeah, 2 major Western networks want to do stories on us. I planned on saying yes.
What? You want to broadcast this place to the world?
Huey.
Our guests are right on time. Document destruction and hangar decontamination are complete. AFVs have been stowed away, and Zeke's on the seafloor along with a nuke. Everyone's got their story straight. The guided tour will be wrapped up by the time you get home.
Make me proud.
By the time they leave, I'll have the IAEA praising us as the poster boys for world peace. Out.
Well, after the Caribbean. My hunch was proven right. You wouldn't believe who was behind it.
Oh, I have an idea. How did you respond?
Immediate disinformation campaign. Most bought into the story, but not everyone. It was quite an incident, after all. I couldn't cover everything, but I did hide the fact that Snake survived. And that should buy us some time.
Where is he?
En route to an old foxhole of mine. A base in the British sovereign area of Cyprus.
The military hospital at Dekelia?
Ava's leading the operation.
Ava? Following your orders?
Funny, isn't it? That we should all reunite like this.
This is an emergency. Otherwise, I sure as hell would...
Yes, I don't expect you to bury the hatchet between us. Something simply won't ever happen. Even I can appreciate that. You too can only bear to speak with me from time to time. That's fine. But I don't want Snake to die. Surely we can come together on that.
Zero ultimately devised a plan that would both shield Big Boss and himself. Venom Snake was the perfect vector to carry out revenge that threatened the Patriots and Big Boss. The body double plan was a secret, and it was most likely only a handful of people who knew of this. With Venom Snake adding to Big Boss's legacy would cement himself further as a hero. At some point the Major would be in a vegetated state due to Skullface, rendering his grip on the United States and overall decision making on Big Boss's plans. With Big Boss then could infiltrate the US whilst his Phantom maintains his nation.
If you don't wake up soon, I won't remember you when you do. I don't mind about myself, but what he did to you, I can never forgive. I've sent him to Africa, and I doubt he's coming back. But anyway, I probably won't be around. I'll be somewhere even you can't find me. A tombstone chiseled into the code of a machine. That is all I leave to mark my existence. Wake up soon, old friend.
In the early 1990s, Yeager served with a distinction in the US Special Forces Unit, Foxhound, under the command of the legendary Big Boss himself, among the elite operatives of Foxhound. Yeager stood out as a paragon of skill and intellect, earning him the prestigious codename Fox, the unit's highest commendation. Decorated 5 times for his exceptional bravery and tactical acumen, Fox emerged as an unofficial leader within Foxhound, revered by his peers for his unparalleled abilities on the battlefield. His real name remained classified under national security protocols, shrouding his identity in mystery and intrigue. Alongside Frank Yeager with Foxhound's finest would be also David, aka Solid Snake, who joined Big Boss's Special Forces unit, Foxhound, who would receive all different kinds of training under Big Boss himself, such as CQC and other military survival expertise. Frank Yeager and David was considered the best within the unit. Snake described Grey Fox as his best friend, and when he was a rookie, he looked up to the only man to earn the codename Fox. Much like Big Boss, Fox took on a mentor role within Snake's life.
Frank Yeager. Big Boss's most trusted lieutenant, and the only member of Foxhound ever to receive the codename Fox. Grey Fox.
I learned a lot from him.
With Big Boss's nation secretly underway, in 1995, Grey Fox as a Foxhound agent would embark on Operation Intrude N313 to gather intelligence on a secret nuclear weapon being developed in Outer Heaven, no doubt sent by the higher above Big Boss in the United States. Despite successfully infiltrating the fortress and uncovering critical information about this weapon, including its location and security measures, Fox's mission ended in failure when he was captured. Before his transmission was cut off, his final words to Foxhound were simply, "Metal Gear," which would be known as a TX-55 Metal Gear, a formidable weapon capable of launching nuclear strikes from any location on the planet. Was developed under the guidance of Big Boss as a strategic deterrent against other nations. This nuclear-equipped fortress manned elite mercenaries under the command of Venom Snake. Big Boss saw the TX-55 Metal Gear as a form of insurance, leveraging its capabilities to assert dominance and challenge the traditional power structures of the world. With Venom Snake at the helm, this fortress represented a bold assertion of sovereignty and military might, embodying Big Boss's vision of reshaping the geopolitical landscape.
Infiltrate the enemy fortress, Outer Heaven. Destroy the final weapon, Metal Gear.
Amidst the aftermath of Grey Fox's capture and detainment, Big Boss, aware of Grey Fox's prowess as a soldier, would command Venom Snake to ensure his safety and preservation. This directive sets the stage for Solid Snake to undertake Grey Fox's unresolved mission, designated Operation Intrude N313. With Solid Snake embodying determination and skill and being a friend of Grey Fox, would delve into Outer Heaven's mysteries to both liberate his friend and unearth the unsettling secrets surrounding the new Metal Gear. Ocelot, with his intelligence, would no doubt with his insights to Cypher's inner workings, likely apprise Big Boss of his two sons, including Solid Snake. Through the revelations disclosed in the encoded tapes of Metal Gear Solid 5, Ocelot's revelations, particularly in Episode 51, illuminate Liquid's animosity towards Cypher, underscoring the familiar ties between David, Solid Snake, and Eli, Liquid Snake, and the sons of Big Boss. It was really thanks to Ocelot during 1984 that Big Boss was made aware of his two sons' locations, and for the fact that they was created as an insurance policy against him in case he went rogue against Cypher. With Commander Miller being aware of this during the events of Peace Walker and keeping Big Boss completely oblivious of his own two sons who were set out to be against him.
Yes, of course. Speaking of which, any news on the sons? 2. Already? Really? But they're strictly an insurance policy, yes? So that's the idea. I wonder how Big Boss will respond.
Boss, we've got the results of Eli's genetic tests. We can finally put this worry behind us.
We used the PCR technique and conducted DNA fingerprinting of the copied DNA sequences. Neither is mainstream science yet, but the concepts and procedures are sound. Both tests say there is 0% chance that the two of you are blood relatives, meaning the results are negative. He's not your son, nor is he your clone. He's just another person.
It was 12 years ago that Zero made plans to clone you. Eli's age and appearance certainly are a good fit. I admit the first time I saw him I did a double take, but it looks like we were worried for nothing. Learning the truth about himself, cursing the fact he's a clone, bearing a grudge against selfish adults, and coming to hate who he was cloned from. Big Boss. If that were really the case, I could understand it. I might even feel a bit sorry for him.
Clouds.
But no clone could have a totally different DNA fingerprint.
I was created by Cypher. And I was the flaw. My fate was written in my genes. I'm the loser. you. All because of you. I'm not me. I'm just a copy of you. I will surpass my father. Destroy my father.
Les enfants terribles. The terrible children.
That madness Zero started. Or the start of his madness.
You found out something new?
The plan itself was abandoned in '76. ATGC dismantled the project, and their account with DARPA was closed. So I was worried about what happened to you. Your sons.
They're no sons of mine. And they're sure as hell not me.
Just a bunch of cells grown in a lab?
What they are is much sicker than that.
Well, Zero doesn't think so. Eva doesn't either. To them, those boys are your clones. They're you, down to the last hair.
And?
The first boys were raised free range, like we thought. Both of them. David has never left the States, but the other, Eli, has disappeared. Might as well call it abandoned. They're through with him.
Where is he?
He was in England, Zero's home ground. Apparently he traveled to Africa after that, but that's where he escaped from Zero's care.
Just like that? Why?
Who knows? Maybe he found out about his birth. If he's alive, he'd be 11 or 12 by now. Old enough to think and act for himself.
So he might still be alive?
On his own, there? I wouldn't bet on it. John, if he is alive, what's the plan?
I have nothing to say to him. Treat him like a human being, just another person.
Solid Snake's infiltration of Outer Heaven under Big Boss's command is catalysed by growing suspicions within NATO, who has ties within Foxhound, and the United States regarding the Enclave's potential threat. NATO, a cornerstone of the international collective defence, views Outer Heaven's emergence as a destabilising force in the delicate balance of global security. Founded in 1949, NATO's mission centres on safeguarding members' nations against external threats through mutual defence and crisis management. As Solid Snake embarks on his clandestine mission, the stakes are high, with Outer Heaven's enigmatic agenda posing a direct challenge to NATO's commitment to collective security and global stability.
We are soldiers. Diplomats.
Și reacționăm la criză.
Crisis responders. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Nous sommes prêts à agir.
We are ready. We are strong.
Sommes aliados.
We are allies.
Dans les airs,
in the air,
numai,
at sea, on land,
în spațiul cibernetic,
and in cyberspace. We are NATO.
In the heart of Outer Heaven, Solid Snake embarks on a perilous mission, relying solely on his wits and resourcefulness to navigate the treacherous landscape, where he must collect weapons on sight, unaware that Big Boss was deliberately and intentionally trying to test his abilities in hopes that he would fail against his Outer Heaven nation. Solid Snake would allow himself to be captured in order to contact Grey Fox and rely on the likes of Diane for further additional intel. As Solid Snake leaves the cell, he discovers that Dr. Madnar is behind its creation, and he is the only one who knows how to defeat it. However, during his harrowing escape, Snake must recollect his equipment when he encounters one of Venom Snake's mercenaries, a formidable adversary lurking within the shadows of Outer Heaven. A former Spetsnaz operative during the time of the Soviet Union, his time with the Spetsnaz allowed him to hone his technique using the riot gun, but would prove no match for the likes of Solid Snake. As Solid Snake continues his perilous journey through outer heaven, surrounded by lasers, guards, security cameras, as well as electrified floors, he encounters a prisoner who reveals crucial information regarding Dr. Petrovich Madnar, the architect of Metal Gear, and is being held in a cell within the courtyard. To reach Madnar and extract vital intelligence on dismantling the weapon, Snake learns that he requires a parachute for access. But in doing so, in this quest, Snake faces an unexpected challenge when he crosses paths with Machine Gun Kid, a formidable elite operative in Venom Snake's ranks. This adversary, once a member of the British Army Elite SAS Special Forces, is renowned for being one of the best at wielding a machine gun. With Machine Gun Kid out the way, Solid Snake could now go and retrieve the parachute to make his way to Dr. Madnar. But before parachuting his way to the courtyard, Solid Snake needs the bomb blast suit in order to avoid the heavy winds that will steer him off course. When Solid Snake arrives at the roof, Big Boss informs him some important details about his mission, which is quite a common occurrence throughout his mission that is quite helpful, at this point at least. He still believes Solid Snake will most likely fail his mission. With the blast suit and the parachute, Solid Snake makes his way to the roof, avoiding the guards with the jetpacks, when eventually he would come across a Hind D. Luckily for Snake, this Hind D couldn't take off from the roof, so he could hide behind the boxes whilst blasting it with a grenade launcher. With the Hind D being completely disposed of, Solid Snake could make his way through the roof and finally parachute off into the courtyard. When Snake looks for Dr. Petrovich Madnar in his cell, he appears to be missing, when another prisoner seems to inform that Dr. Madnar had been moved to a different building. But to get to Building 2, Solid Snake had to rely on his mine detector to get past fields of mines. And if that wasn't enough of a challenge, Solid Snake would also have to come up against a tank that was blocking his path. But it was no match for him, as he knew that the underside of its armour was weak and could place mines to destroy it. Building 2 is heavily guarded, so Solid Snake has to rely on his disguise in order to get past the guards to sneak his way into Building 2. Snake then would have to defeat a bulldozer that was actually blocking one of the prisoners to find out more additional intel that Dr. Madnar was being held in the basement. Although that would be false information in which one of the prisoners tried to relay to Snake. Dr. Madnar was actually on the second floor, and this Dr. Madnar was actually a decoy. Thanks to Solid Snake's sharp wits, he was able to avoid falling down the trap fall, and listening to Kyle Schneider and the rest of the resistance team that would give him vital information along the way, such as avoiding gas and making sure he has his gas mask at hand. As Solid Snake would make his way to Dr. Madnar, he would run into Fire Trooper, an elite German mercenary that was highly skilled with flamethrowers. Fire Trooper forced Snake to battle him, threatening to burn him to a crisp. However, despite the advantage of an even battlefield with not much cover in sight, Snake was able to take advantage of Fire Trooper's relative lack of bodily protection and eventually would eliminate him. As Solid Snake would venture on further through outer heaven, he'd eventually come across a prisoner who would have the waveband number for Snake to contact a resistance member called Jennifer. But unfortunately, if he didn't have 4 stars from killing some of the mercenaries and helping some of the prisoners, Jennifer would not talk to Snake about vital information that he would need. Eventually, Solid Snake would find Dr. Petrovich Madnar, but in exchange for information about Metal Gear, Madnar requests that Solid Snake rescue his daughter, Ellen, who is trapped in Outer Heaven. Solid Snake would agree and would take on 2 AI weapons known as the Bloody Brads, which were TX-11 model cyberoids which were developed by Madnar himself. Solid Snake would defeat these 2 AI weapons by using the rocket launcher in which Jennifer gave him. After destroying the Bloody Brads, Solid Snake would blow a hole into the wall to reveal that Ellen is trapped in a secret room, completely safe and sound. When Solid Snake would inform Madnar that he'd rescued his daughter, Madnar relayed information that was essential in directions to destroy Metal Gear, by planting plastic bombs in a left and right sequence on its legs, and having to trek through a field full of scorpions to get an oxygen tank and then trekking all the way back. With Solid Snake nearing the completion of his mission, he would soon discover some shocking revelations about Outer Heaven and the Commander. Big Boss, who would no doubt be relaying the progress to Venom Snake, would start to get worried as Solid Snake has been successful thus far, would try everything in his power to mislead him. And then swimming all the way through a drainage ditch which would house the Metal Gear TX-55. But at some point, Solid Snake would receive information from Kyle Schneider that the commander of Outer Heaven was Big Boss. Unfortunately, he wouldn't be able to fully reveal this revelation to Solid Snake as the transmission would be cut. Solid Snake would then face Dirty Duck, who was using 3 POWs as human shields, which included Jennifer's brother. He dared Snake to try and shoot him while attacking with his lethal boomerangs. In addition, the area's floor was rigged with a pit trap, just in case Snake attempted to close in on Duck. However, Snake found an opening against Duck's attacks and killed him without harming the POWs, retrieving an important keycard to access Metal Gear. As Solid Snake would discover this shocking revelation, he would continue his self further on through Outer Heaven, only to just receive a call from Big Boss himself telling him to turn the MSX off. Abandon Operation Intrude. Solid Snake would ignore Big Boss's commands and would continue on to destroy the TX-55, as his suspicions would grow on the overall operation's integrity. At this point, Big Boss would have been contacting Venom Snake to prepare for the battle of a lifetime with his own son, and not to lose character and face, as Venom Snake is also Big Boss too. With Solid Snake defying Big Boss's expectations, he would destroy Metal Gear, and when Outer Heaven's self-destruct sequence was subsequently activated, Venom Snake would then confront Solid Snake.
Solid Snake, you arrived here. I'm the Commander-in-Chief of Foxhound and Boss of Outer Heaven, Big Boss. I gave a rookie like you this mission to let you report false information. But you have gone too far. Too far.
I won't die for nothing. You die with me. Come on!
In the climactic showdown, Solid Snake confronts Big Boss's Phantom, and one of the most formidable mercenaries ever known. Armed with rockets and unwavering determination, Snake engages in a fierce battle to defeat Venom Snake and thwarts the sinister plans of Outer Heaven. The explosions rock the crumbling fortress and chaos reigns. Solid Snake's relentless pursuit pays off as Venom Snake falls defeated and disappears. With Outer Heaven on the brink of self-destruction, Snake races against the time to escape the collapsing facility. Amidst the ruins, a chapter closes with the downfall of a Phantom and the rise of Solid Snake begins, a legend forged in the crucible of conflict and deception. As the dust settles, Snake emerges victorious, his mission accomplished, but the scars of battle etched deep within, with nightmares that consume him. Shortly afterwards, NATO launched an air raid to wipe out any remaining Outer Heaven facilities, indifferent to the resulting deaths of those in the area, since the war orphans and refugees were considered a liability. Big Boss managed to save as many of them, including the surviving fortress personnel, mercenaries, and even resistance members, the last of whom he forgave for their initial opposition to him. With the news providing a cover story to South Africa that the explosions that were felt was tremors from an earthquake rather than the explosions. With the Phantom dead, Big Boss would have the cover he needed to go into hiding again to rebuild Zanzibar, his new Outer Heaven. And when the time was right, Big Boss would have his resurgence and his coup d'etat against the Patriots. Well, that's all for today's story in Outer Heaven. Well, thank you once again guys for watching. I have been your host, The Voice Box. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you watch my videos on a regular, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button, support the channel. Well anyway guys, until we meet again, and keep your eye out for any more disturbances.